Brian, Pope Francis became the fourth pope to address the UN. He follows Pope Paul VI, John Paul II, and Benedict XVI. During his quick visit, the Holy Father hit on many topics, from the environment to the breakdown of the family. In his now signature black Fiat, Pope Francis pulls into UN headquarters. Those watching outside remember papal visits from the past.
79, John Paul II, by in the limo from near where we're standing now, so only 40 years ago or whatever that is.
While other popes have been here before, Pope Francis gets a warm UN welcome today.
Regardless of faith, we draw inspiration from your humility.
In his long-anticipated speech, the Holy Father featured themes from his recent letter, Laudato Si.
Any harm done to the environment, therefore, is harm done to humanity.
He also made clear his position on life issues, calling the marketing of human organs and tissues an evil result of exclusion.
He's building on a lot of the things that he talked about with Congress, but what we're seeing is in this speech to this audience, I think the most diplomatically technical speech he's given.
Dr. Matthew Bunson, a Catholic theologian, points out the Vatican is the oldest diplomatic voice in the world, and the UN needs the Pope's voice.
Are there things that the UN does, that the Holy See, that we as a church are strongly opposed to? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that we can't work with them, continue to be heard.
Dr. Bunson says when Pope Francis speaks to the United Nations, he's speaking to the world, so we should all listen. New Yorkers seem to love having Pope Francis in their city. Today, the Post renamed itself the New York Pope. Brian.
Dr. Robert George, professor at Princeton University and founder of the American Principles Project, joining us to talk about the Pope's UN speech. So he talked about the environment itself having a right. What does that mean?
Well, the first thing to notice is that this speech is a wonderful bringing together of all the different dimensions of Catholic social and moral teaching. It tries to integrate all of the teachings, and it does so really in quite a beautiful way. Now, what about this idea of the environment itself having rights? Well, the Pope makes very clear, as he develops that notion, that the environment has rights insofar as and because people are part of the environment.
Indeed.
We are not somehow apart from the environment, we're integrated into the environment. And because the environment serves the needs of human persons, the environment has to be treated as having a kind of personal quality. But it's for the sake of persons that we regard the environment as important and needing to be protected.
Isn't he setting a whole new direction for environmentalism here?
Oh, he is. It's got to be a humanistic, a personalistic environmentalism, not one that can treat the environment as if it's a deity. The Pope's concern there, of course, is the old error, the old heresy called pantheism, treating the physical world as if it's God. The physical world has significance because human beings are in it. God has put human beings in it, and it serves our interests as human beings. He's also got a powerful message here for environmentalists. You can't concern yourself with the environment and make any sense doing it if you throw overboard marriage and the family, if you throw overboard the unborn child. The Pope condemns what he calls declarationist nominalism. It's a very intelligible speech, but I suspect most people won't know what declarationalist nominalism is, but let me explain it to you. It's the idea that you can change the reality of something by calling it something different. For example, this would be the idea that you can make something that's not a marriage into a marriage simply by calling it a marriage. And the Pope not only condemns that, he says that it leads to the undermining of truth and to the undermining of humanity. So he wants us to attend to the reality of things and not try to change realities by renaming them. And then the second concept that jumped out at me that might be a little obscure to people, and I'll quote him again, is the Pope condemns in no uncertain terms what he calls ideological colonization, the imposition, and I'm quoting him, of anomalous models and lifestyles which are alien to a people's identity and in the end irresponsible. Now, what does the Pope mean by that? Here we have the Pope looking the United States in the eye, looking Europe in the eye, the great wealthy democratic nations, and saying, you've got to stop imposing your decadent lifestyles on Africa and Asia and Latin America and the rest of the third world. You cannot make financial aid, developmental aid, conditional upon these nations accepting abortion or gay marriage or any of the other sexualist liberation dogmas. The Pope here again is going right up against this kind of liberal secular orthodoxy and making clear that he is standing with the Church's teaching on life and marriage.
And making history at the United Nations.
Yes,
Dr. Robert
indeed.
George, thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.